from somewhere else. I mean, you can get the. I think that the way that Valerie did it, she went and got the grinder or buffer. They're basically this exact same thing. It's just a matter of what's on the end. She got that from Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. Okay. So you know all that. So
yeah, I will need to buy all this stuff. That okay. Just another tool. Yeah.
Well, but I am curious. Sorry, you guys, as we talk a little bit about sanding for a moment here. But for Red, if you're doing it with hand sanding and you're not getting it to feel really comfortable for you,
for me it's comfortable. For my friend, it's not.
What grit do you get to when you're hand sanding?
1500.
And do you wet sand it? Like, do you get it all wet while you're doing it?
There we go.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I go to two. I do go to two. Hi, Elizabeth. I do go to 2,000 on my grit for that. So that may be something that you may want to do, is just go to Home Depot and get 2,000 grit with the wet dry.
Yeah.
And just try it. But if you can get to that level, it should be really smooth. 3,000 will get you to glass level, glass smoothness.
You know, it's like, it's crazy. It's just, it doesn't worth doing it on each cup to put so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And I tell you what, when I did the hand, because it takes me minimum of 10 minutes to sand each cup. And my hands ache. So yeah, get that sand grinder. Or the studio sander. It really is amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, I was blown away. Like, it's like less than 10 seconds and I'm done with a mug.
So you have okay, and for how long it will last? One roll? I don't know how it's
I haven't done enough to know. Go ahead. Really.
Go ahead, Becca.
How long are you so far? I made it through maybe 15 pots, smaller pots, and I had to go ahead and pull a little more out and cut off what had wore down. But the sanding, you have a lot of it, so
okay.
I don't know. I mean, Valerie would be a really good person to ask because she's used that for a really long time.
I just want to know how much money I will spend for this craziness. Yeah.
I get it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What's the name of the sander again?
The studio sander. And hey, Becca, do you just do the bottoms of are you just sanding your bottoms?
No, I'm sanding the whole thing because I'm doing raw clay too. So like,
okay, so all three of us are in the same boat. Yeah, exactly.
I have underglaze, and then I used to clear the underglaze, but lately I've been doing this satin wash, so it's a little different. But yeah, it does a really good job. And I did find that when the sander, when the bench grinder was at that like too high of RPM, I do these really fine X-Acto lines, and those would start to kind of like, I'd lose that and I would get lines from the same paper.
Grind
so
right
you definitely
through. You got to be careful.
Yeah, you got to be fast. And also I got that I have the box.
Can you
say a router speed control?
Router?
And it
okay.
This I got for like $17 with a coupon.
Becca, yours is way better than what I did. I wish I would have just gone with that. I didn't even know that existed. I went and made my own, and had I known that was available,
I would
not have done
it. Becca, can you post it on Facebook that I will have it?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll do that right now.
Okay.
You guys are playing Minecraft?
Great, appreciate it.
Okay. Enough with sanding. So I don't want to waste everyone else's time while we're talking about sanding. But first off, let's just welcome a couple of new people here. So Leanne, welcome to the group. So glad to meet you.
Thanks. I'm trying to get this headset on because I had to use my phone, and it's a little bit difficult to hear. And I see somebody has a headset, so that must work good.
That's what I use. And also,
there we go.
and Chiro does too. So Leanne, it's really good to meet you face to face.
Thanks, you guys too.
You've got the craziest story. I can't wait to get you actually onto the Potter's Cast because you've got the craziest story. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I joined the group is I'm trying to change my story a little bit. maybe stay home. I'm getting old, and the traveling is kind of getting it's getting crazy. It's getting to be too much. So we're changing things up and staying, and the transition is getting tricky. So yeah.
Nice. Very good. And Christina, welcome. Everybody hasn't had a chance to see you face to face, so everyone say hi to Christina.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. How
Christina
are you?
She's friends with Obama. She actually goes to, she's from Chicago, so she bumps into him just every weekend.
The only time I bumped into him is when he came to speak at my high school a long time ago, before he was president, so.
Oh, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You. Okay, and Troy, it's good to see you, bro.
Hello.
Look at that beautiful face.
Long time. Yeah.
Okay, a couple of things. First off, before we get going too far, I wanted to point something out to you. Notice on the wall, I've got some. Wait, I'm turning on my light. There you go. That's my thinking light. But up there on the wall are some airplanes that are from my dad when I was a child, like really young. When I was living on Spires Street in San Diego, California, Vista, California. Those hanging on the wall. As my mom had bought 3 of them. There's another one over there. But my mom had bought 3 of them for my dad because my dad was a pilot. And 2 years ago, we went back to clean out his house in International Falls, Minnesota. And I climbed up in the attic, which I'm telling you, I'll just be real honest, his attic is not the nicest place in the world. It was not. And like there was a place where bats could get in there, and he's just this old farm. He just had this old farm property. But anyhow, I was digging around, and I came across them, and I had no idea that I had missed them. Like I saw them, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's the thing I've been missing my whole life are these airplanes." And they're cast iron. They're from my dad's from my childhood. They belong to my dad. And so I brought them home, and I had them in my office laying on the floor over there. And right before I hit play, right before you guys started joining, I looked in my screen and I saw them on the wall, and I was shocked. My wife came in and hung them up on the wall for me. So I'm pretty stoked. So
that's pretty sweet.
So there's, can you see them right there?
Yes.
Yeah, they look cool.
Really tacky. Really tacky, but
that's awesome, Paul.
Don't worry.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have them. And before we go any further, let me also just really quickly. This is for Chiro. Chiro, and look what I got. There you go. So Chiro turned me on to this book. He was supposed to be at Powell's Books, but Powell's didn't have it. So Chiro has come down and helped me figure out some stuff with my ceramics, and so that just showed up this afternoon when I got home from some stuff I was doing. I came home and I saw that, and I was really excited. So Chiro's turned me on to some good ceramic print stuff. So, okay. And also a Troy Bungart cup, everyone. Troy Bungart right here. Okay, so the thing that is really important for us to do at some point is to start setting goals, because as I put in my post, is that January 1st comes, and most people, this is what most people do, is they wake up on January 1st, or they go to bed January 1st, and they start thinking, "Okay, what are my goals for the year?" And that's when they start thinking about, which is fine, but typically if that's when you think about them, then you're probably going to be like 90% of the rest of America and the world, that on January 1st, the New Year's resolutions will disappear quite quickly because it's like an afterthought. But the bigger question is, before we even get to that point, trying to figure out, well, what kind of goals ought we start for ourselves? like, how do we know even what goals to set? And I've been thinking about that for the last few days. By the way, hi, Carly. I didn't think you're going to be able to make it tonight, so it's so good to see you. Yeah. So I've been thinking about that, and then, oddly, maybe providentially, I'm not sure, but quite oddly, a couple of things came up this week. Like Elizabeth wrote in a post, I think it was just yesterday, Elizabeth, you said something about how suddenly you had to turn away some friends, not turn away some friends, but turn down hanging out with some friends that were out of town, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you were stuck having to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bad feeling.
And that's a frustrating thing. Leanne talked about starting to do some branding things, and there's just a couple of other things that came up that made me that all three of these kind of big things came up in amongst us that made me think, well, this is really a bigger issue than just me kind of thinking about my ideas about what, trying to figure out what goals to set. I think this is something that's really applicable to all of us. So a lot of times at this time of year, November, I start thinking, what should next year look like? But probably a better question to ask is not just what should next year look like, but start asking the questions about, like the why, or how do I even go about coming up with the right type of goals or the right type of vision for the year. Because I think there's a very big difference between setting goals and knowing why you're setting goals. If you can get to the why portion of it, it'll be way more significant than just randomly setting goals. Random goals won't do a whole lot for us. So the first question I have for y'all is, does that little intro make sense to you? Do you see the difference of what I'm talking about, besides before saying let's go about setting goals and how to achieve goals, to saying what goals should I even set in the first place? Does that make sense? Becca, we'll just ask you real quickly. Does that make sense to you, the difference, the differentiation that I'm trying to make there?
Yeah, definitely.
Anyone else? Does that make sense? Am I losing anyone?
It makes sense, and I was just going to say that and you're saying it's to make goals, sometimes it helps if I look at what maybe my 5-year or my 10-year goals are in order to make goals for a more immediate future, because then I know, like, okay, this is what I'm working towards for a 10-year plan, and this is what I need to do the next 6 months or a year in order to get to that in 10 years.
That's not exactly what I'm saying, but let me say that's not. It's not trying to define where I want to be in 10 years or 5 years or even a year. It's more asking the question of be there in the first place.
Oh,
it's really getting a firm
that's a bigger
yeah, it's like
getting
saying,
real deep on us, Paul.
Yeah,
it's like trying to ask the question about, like, what wall are we leaning our ladder on? It's great to climb a ladder, if we're going to call the ladder of success. It's great but first off, you want to say is, where is that ladder, and am I climbing it in the right direction? Does that make sense? So is that, like, how do I get to the point of where I can set goals that are going to be really fruitful and are going to make me happy? One of the best things I heard when I was in high school was one of my friends, John Crouch. He was my closest friend in high school. Well, I had like 5 best friends, and John Crouch was one of them. And John Crouch, Suzette. When he fell in love with Suzette, he stopped hanging out with me 100% and started hanging out with Suzette 100%, which is all good. But they were only in high school. I'm still bitter. No, not really. I'm not bitter. But he said this one line. John Crouch said this one line that I have thought about my entire adult life, since high school. About when he was in Actually, this would have been just after high school, because he was in the California Highway Patrol Academy. He was applying for it, and before he was accepted, he had to go through some simple training. And he told me this one line that they talked about in the Highway Patrol deal was that the best drivers, or the best way to be a good driver, always driving, right? Thus Highway Patrol. He said, the best way to make a good decision about at the moment they're in is to try to look as far down the road as possible. And if you can see down the road, you will be way more successful at driving at this point by knowing what's coming up. And he said to me, Paul, that makes me think about life so differently that when I start thinking about, if I want to be happy in 5 years or 10 years, I need to be looking that far down the road to be able to make the right decisions now. So that brings me back to the why question about the why thing. And some of that is just like trying to figure out which why questions to ask. That's the challenge that I want to try to bring us through this evening about figuring that out, because here is the gig. And if you've hung out with me for any length of time, you've probably heard me say at some point that you can either live a life of default or a life of design.
I'm gonna go when I'm done. I'll come up.
A life of default is whatever comes your way is what happens. And someone else gets to make those decisions for you. The design is one that you have laid out the plan, the architecture, and you have figured out how to get to where you want to go, and you design that yourself. And that again brings us back to the why. And also intentionality. It also brings us back to intentionality too. Because here's one of the gigs that is so true about life. One of the things I tried to teach my children when they were growing up was, if you don't control yourself, someone else will. The more control you have for yourself, the less control someone else will have on you. But the less control you have of yourself, the more control someone else will have on you. So, does that make sense at this point? I want to stop and just ask the question. Chiro, does that make sense, what I'm saying at this point?
Yeah. Be intentional with your thought processes, your planning, your actions.
Look at that great mold you have, by the way. Everyone look at Chiro's mold behind him. My
molds are drying. It's very rainy here.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so the next thing is that one of the things I've also found in counseling, in coaching other people about their lives, and also in myself, so it's not like me looking out, but it's also me looking in too, so both of those things. Some of the things that I've found is that sometimes I just don't know what goals to set, because I'm not sure exactly where I want to go to. And my wife just asked me, and she asked me Sunday night, she said, Paul, if you, and this is a classic question, everybody's probably heard this question, if money were no object, what would your dream life be? And I said to her, let me think about it before I answer it, partly because I was doing other things, but don't tell her. But I said, let me think about it. And so I had to think that through a little bit more deep, just giving an off-the-cuff answer. And so this morning we got to talking about it, because yesterday, as I was driving around yesterday, I started to think a little bit more deeply about that question. So let me go through some of the questions that we could be asking ourselves. And regardless of whether you have a super well-defined path that you know you want to do, let me ask you some of the questions to help you redefine or refine. So those two things. Redefine means you may need to change direction. Refine means you help to hone it down and get sharp in those directions, okay? So the first question that I would say, I'm going to ask yourself when you're trying to figure out why you want to set the goals that you want to set, is ask yourself this question. Right now in life, what has got you bugged? Major pause there intentionally. What has got you bugged in life? To get that question defined, let's see.
Can you describe what the word bugged, like what is the definition of that in the context you're using it?
Okay,
like
how about
irritated,
this?
like
yeah, frustrated.
Okay.
There's actually two ways to look at that. There's frustration, and these can be minor frustrations. These are not the big things. These are more of the minor things, because there's another question I want to ask you in a moment. But the first question, the second question is going to be bigger picture, but the first one is more, it's more like it's an irritant. The podcast Happier with Gretchen Rubin. Okay, well, there's a podcast called Happier with Gretchen Rubin, okay? And it's a sister team that does the show. I've listened to virtually every episode, so I need to, there's a couple that I need to get caught up on, but I love Rubin. She's a phenomenally smart person. But they have a sponsor for their first love, and it's a sponsor that I have no need for. It's about bras. And the thing about bras is that I don't know about, but when they start talking about her first love, Gretchen's sister Elizabeth talks about how she'll put her bra on and she has like a strap that just digs into her shoulder, and she said this, well, I guess I just have to live with that for the day. Just this minor irritant that is just frustrating to deal with or live with, that got you bugged, but not enough to necessarily change your entire life over. So these are like basic irritants of life. And I tell you, and I've never worn a bra myself, but I've had other things in my life that have been total minor irritants, like a stone in my shoe or pebble, or balled up on one side instead of the other side. These are things that are like not that big of a deal, but they are irritating. And I think that looking at minor irritants, so Leanne, add a little bit more. Does that answer your question?
Oh
like
yeah, I got
minor
a list
irritation.
now. I could tell you like 30 things right off the bat.
Yes, and it could be things not as mundane as like our underwear or a stone in the shoe. It could also be,
employee drama. That's my first one on my list. Employee drama.
Did you say flea drama?
Employee, like I have like
employee drama.
something employees ranging from the age of like 17 to 25, and they all come in like hungover, wanting to tell me about how their boyfriend was out with so and so. I'm like, I don't care, just come to work, ready to work. So that's my one right off the bat. That's a huge one.
A really good one. Yes, these are irritants of life. These are really important to kind of define out there for yourself. That's the question to really ask yourself, is what type of things are bugging me? Here's another thing to ask another question to ask yourself. Scared. Now that's a different type of a question. The first question, these are just irritants. The second question are things that have you very concerned. And I would tell you that it's amazing how many things that have us scared to postpone or try to ignore, they feel like they're too big for us. You an example from my life. I'm going to give you 2 examples. Do you guys care if I use myself as an example?
No.
Okay. No. Okay. Here's one thing I'm really afraid of. Dying in the next year or 2. I'm being totally vulnerable when I say that. I'm afraid of dying in the next year or 2. As you guys already know, I've had a scare with cancer. I still have a 50-50 chance of it coming back. In the next year or 2, my wife will be left destitute because cancer is really expensive to survive. Super expensive. So if I were to pass away in the next 2 years, which is, it's a chance. I mean, that's something that's there. It's got me scared to death. Another thing that really has me scared is my teeth. Now, that may not be a big deal to you, but I have at least 3 teeth that really need major attention. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, I thought to myself, spending $1,000 on getting my tooth fixed, because thrown at the wind, because if I was going to die, what was the point of spending money on my teeth? So I ignored them. And then when I realized I was going to be living longer than the next 6 months, which I'm so glad that I am, by that point, cancer had attacked our finances so badly, I didn't have the money to go fix my teeth. So now I've got 3 teeth that need to be addressed that I'm going to finally make an appointment to. But these are things that, like, I keep thinking, I think 2 or 3 things. All my teeth are going to fall out of my head, or I'm going to get heart disease as a result of, like, because if you don't take care of your teeth, you have, like, you can get heart disease from it. So I've got these things that's rattling around in my head. And I realize I'm going for the really big ones. That may not necessarily be the big ones, like your life is on the line. They could be finances are on the line, or that your retirement is on the line, or that a relationship is on the line. These are big ones because they're way more significant than employee drama, that's not fitting correctly. Bigger than that because they are touching, they're really close to the top of your heart, with, life, relationships, love, those finances. So you see the difference between the 2? Irritants and irrational. Those are the 2 big ones, but they're still real feelings. Carly, does that make sense, the difference? I know you've been kind of bouncing in and out. I don't know what's up with your computer, but does that make a difference? You muted, by the way.
Yeah, I think I have a bad connection. Everything's a bad connection today, but I totally get what you're saying, and that's kind of where we are right now in our lives, my husband and I. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So those are 2 huge questions to ask you. What's got you bugged? Okay, I don't want to be a negative, like a Debbie Downer tonight, although I'm really good at it. Let me ask you the next question. I think that really I'm going to ask. Excited. There are. We can put that one just as simple as that. What's got you excited? Is asking that question very seriously. When I say what's got you excited, it's starting to ask the questions about like that question my wife asked me on Sunday night. If money were no object, what would totally float your boat, get you stoked? That if no worries were in the world, what's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that you would do without a doubt in the next 2 years? This is not saying bucket list thing. That's different. A bucket list is saying, you know what would be nice? Before I die, I would like to go to Italy. I would like to go to Italy. Me personally, before I die, I want to go to Italy to eat their ice cream. I want ice cream. Okay, so that's what bucket list. This is different though. When I start talking about what's got me excited, what's got me pumped up to say, if I could live my life as, that's the question that I would start saying. Before I ever start setting goals, I want to know what's got me excited. Goals just to further something that's not exciting, that's not going to be too fun to do. Unmotivate you. Every time you do it, unmotivating because you really want to. So 3 questions to ask yourself is, what's got you bugged, scared, excited? Now, it's really super important to do, and I would say don't do this in like overnight, but to do this for at least 1 week, is to get a journal, a super selfish attention, and find out, and this is what you want to do. You want to ask those questions. So don't worry about doing it for a long time, but just for 5 minutes on one subject, one question for 3 days in a row, questions, and ask those questions. And then also at the end of the day, conscientious of what? Really observe your thoughts. When you observe your thoughts, those questions that you ask, like what's got you bugged, what's got you scared, what's got you excited, will really start to percolate. You'll think about them. They will percolate throughout the day, and you don't. If you're not observant, they just like come and go. But if you're observant of yourself, making yourself the focus for a week, some patterns throughout the day. Skin that you like, put in your chest pocket, in your back pocket, in your front pocket, doesn't matter. You just have it like handy. Even it could be a notepad on your phone. Just take it in a notepad, and when you see a thought, just take a moment and just think about that thought. It takes you 30 seconds. Start to do those types of things. Then you start to find the questions of why. Want to do what you want to do. There are other things that are really critical, like plan for the basics. One of the things that wife and I say when we go on road trips, pee when you have to, not when you need to. To be on a road trip, restroom really bad, and you would just stop like a half hour before, and you could have gone to the restroom then, but you're like 20 minutes from the next rest stop, or 20 minutes from the next stop, and it's like then your side is. It's a horrible situation to be in, having to pee really bad. So pee when you have to instead of when you need to. That's planning for basics. But having the destination of the why you're going to where you're going, that's a different story. Troy, does that make sense what I'm saying so far? Am I missing something? Do you hear something that is not being said very well?
No, I've got it. Yep.
How about you? Do you have any thoughts so far at this point? Oh, you're muted right now. I don't know if you're trying to talk.
Are you talking to me?
No, I was talking to Red for a moment.
Oh, okay. I didn't even hear the name you said.
Oh, that's all good. Okay, Red is muted, and for some reason she's not coming back. So that's all good. Here's the next thing that I would want to do. Okay, after you've thought about these things, I would say let these questions percolate for at least 3 to 4 days. And then when you look at those, then you can get specific. And what I'm talking about specific is that's when you start to dream, what do I want for my life in the next years? That's when it becomes, Leanne, when you start asking those questions about the 9 to 10 year, goals. When you know what's got you bugged, what's got you scared, what's got you excited, and then also you observe what your thoughts are. It's way different to be able to write those things down, answer those questions. Different set of questions or different set of answers to those when you start to observe your thoughts, because that'll be more revealing for you. They might all be completely lined up with each other, but it becomes way more significant at that point than to start really starting to dream the bigger dreams. Like, for instance, the questions that two of the things that I highlighted when we first started was, with your thoughts of trying to say, the question that you posted on our Facebook group was, does anybody have this problem of relationships, and I've got to plan more time into this, and those types of questions. The thing that you would want to ask about your life and your goals and your intentions about that is saying, I want to be able to have relationships. So the goal could be, because upon your question, be able to have drop things when friends come in town. It's one thing when you have to do that occasionally because you gotta hustle. We all understand hustling. When you never get to be able to do that stuff, say, I want a life that is full of friends. And so that's where you want to have planning ahead. Like, instead of working for your next show, work for 2 shows out. If you do have friends that drop into town, then it becomes the why you're working 2 shows out becomes way more valuable, because you understand the why. Wouldn't it be nice to be organized? Organized is not worth it, but to be able to hang out with friends, no, that's worth it. Or for Leanne, the other one, which is specifically, you asked a question about branding, which I do want to take a couple minutes and talk about that in a few minutes, but is why you want to have branding. Like, my business really needs branding because it's gonna help to grow the business. You want to know the question of, like, why is that important? You keep asking yourself why. Go back. So why is branding important? Well, because it helps to grow my business. Okay. Why is it important to grow your business? Because I'm sick of driving in my van to be able to make a living. Okay. Why is that important? Well, because I want to establish roots with my one spot. See, when you get down to the actual nitty-gritty of the why question, that will then translate out to answer the question about the why branding is important, becomes way more significant, because the why brings meaning, and meaning is way more important than happiness and comfort. A definite meaning behind the why thing for your life, it will bring way more definition, success, and clarity and drive to accomplish the goals that you would then therefore set. Approach, it's a different, what's the word I want to use? It's foundational. It becomes foundational for those things, because all the other things that you then do, like for setting the goals, become way more significant and way more valuable. I know that I want to say right now, okay, I don't want to do all the talking, but boy, I sure like talking.
Can I say one thing?
So let's please open it up. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
When you had said, so you said to see your thoughts, use a notebook or whatever and write them down. And I guess technically that's what I did last night. When I missed that, instead of writing a notebook, I wrote it on Facebook to you guys. I guess that's, and honestly, as soon as I wrote it, when I sat there and continued to glaze and stuff like that, I guess once I actually saw it written down, I really did start thinking about it. And what you just said, it's almost like I started coming to a conclusion. Once I saw that thought written out, it's like, you know what? I was already excited to plan my 2018 goals because I know I'm going to put flex time in there. Like, I know it's going to be different. Like, I know that relationships are important to me, and I'm always,
right.
I never have flex time. I mean, y'all know my life a little bit, but anyway, it was just an example, I guess, of what you said about seeing your thoughts and writing your thoughts. Because at first I'm like, does he mean like write your emotions down or something? But I guess it's writing stuff like that down, almost to yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
The thing that I would say about that, sometimes it's really healthy to write down, diary, at the end of the day, what made me angry, what made me happy. Those are really good things to ask, to record also. That's what I'm saying. Observe your thoughts. What made me happy today? Why do I feel the way I feel right? A way to figure out what your lifelong purpose or meaning behind why you do what you do. Yeah. I'm glad I'm glad you put it on the Facebook page like that. That was really good. Thanks, Elizabeth. Any other thoughts? Chiro, what do you think?
I think that I've already, like Elizabeth, started planning those goals. I have some shows in the beginning of January, or in the end of January and February that are important to me. So I'm starting that work now so that I can hopefully go home for Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important why. Why do I want to get it done early? Yeah. Your dad's really important. Your mom's really important. Really good. Yeah. Let's see. How about Christina? Christina, what do you think? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like I asked myself a big chunk of these questions 2 months ago, which kind of launched getting into the pottery business. So I feel like I'm in the throes of executing some of those things and just trying to, I'm a like big picture to small picture person. So I have to work backwards.
Yeah.
So some of the things that I want to do for next year include being in more shows and trying to figure out like how much inventory I need for craft sales and that. So some of that is just like kind of with the way that you are personally keeping notes. I'm also doing that with the business. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but trying to figure out like what a flow is that will be helpful. Like that's one of the things that I want to establish for next year. So.
Nice. Very good. Kathleen, do you have any thoughts?
There. I think the one thing that keeps cropping up in my head, because is being extemporaneous in things that happen. I'm probably older than most of you, and so I have a retired husband, and we want to do things together, and so those kinds of things require some planning, but I also want to feel excited and creative in the things that make me happy. So as we go through life, I'm kind of through that having to work for a living you know, teaching or, you know, what I was doing before, but life is still really, really busy. And so planning ahead is important. And I think you know, it's quite amazing in that when you supposedly retired, how busy you can be. You just juggle different things. And there's still the pressure to produce. There's still the pressure to get into shows and to do those kinds of things. But I also feel very strongly that I need to learn to be able to, you know, go take a walk at AA, that kind of thing. So the planning is really important. Flexible is also really important. And boy, can life get in the way.
Yeah, life can always get in the way. Hey, Leanne, what do you think? Do you have any thoughts? I see you've been writing quite a bit. Do you have any thoughts?
I write a lot of notes. Yeah, I'm a goal, like, I like lots of lists and lots of goals and lots of planning. Like, I mean, this is my vision board. I mean, I just did a new one last night. Like once a week, I'm like crossing off, writing new things. So I'm all about it. Yes.
I like your vision board, like, or not your vision board, but your how it goes in so many different directions. That's awesome.
I would take you in the other room. I'm worried the signal's gonna go, but I have whiteboards that are like literally the size of my wall. They're like, and there's like a few of them, 5 feet wide, and they're just, it's I mean, I have it planned out to probably what I'm gonna wear when I'm 50 on a day-to-day basis.
Do you understand the why of it though? Does the difference is?
Oh yeah.
The why.
Yeah. No, you said, oh, what makes you excited? Everything. My life is awesome. Everything I do, every single thing I want to do every single day. My life's awesome. And I base it because of I'm really good at making goals and achieving them. And again, knowing why I want and what I want. And so that I can go towards that. Like, I'm not saying I'm great at everything in my life, but that aspect of it, I'm real focused on those things. And so, but I agree with you on the why. That's important because otherwise you're just kind of like trying this and trying that and you don't really know what you want. And so you're just trying things and setting goals, but then you achieve them and then you're not happy. So, yeah, knowing what makes you happy and why you want to be where you want to be is important in setting goals. Yeah.
Yeah. Troy, what do you think? Any thoughts there?
Listening in and I agree with you what you're saying there. And I like these 3 things to think about and consider over a week.
Nice. Very good. Okay, so that's going to be your assignment for this next week that I want to put out to you guys is to put a track of those things, yourself those questions, and there might be some other questions that can tell you that there are other questions you could be asking yourself. And if you want to, absolutely do those. But at least for those 3 days, as a theme, each one of those days, one of those 3 questions: what's got you bugged? What's got you scared? What's got you excited? And do as a bonus question for a 4th day. No object. That'd be the other question to ask yourself. So if you want to do the bonus 4th day, that'd be great. The other thing to do is that during this next week is to try to observe thoughts. Really pay attention to what you think about throughout the day. And perhaps you may have to at 3 times a day intervals, at breakfast, question, what did I wake up thinking? If you think at all before coffee or tea, maybe at lunchtime, go back and just, while I was driving, while I was working, while I was making, ask yourself that question. And then right before you go to bed, what did I think about? And then on one of the days, after you've done all, you want to have like a day of review. I mean, like you take 15, 20, 30 minutes and go through and review those things. You want to start dreaming. You want to dream with very specific things. Big life, the bigger dream. And I would say dream bigger than your fears. Point to where you've got a bit afraid. Thing is like, say, $1 billion this year. You want to dream big, but don't dream unrealistic. Dream bigger than what you would. Go an extra 10% on your dreams. Travel once a month. To pull that off would be because I want to have a great relationship with my significant other. For me, it'd be for my wife. I want to have a wife, or with my kids. And so those could be things that you get really specific about. That's your assignment for this next week. Next, I want to talk about real quickly with Leanne. Leanne mentioned in her Facebook post, she said very specifically, she said, "Hi guys, I'm looking for one-on-one branding."
I edited that, yeah.
Yeah, because I said that you said I'm not looking. Is that what you said originally?
Yeah, originally, and then I was like, that makes no sense. No, am looking, yeah.
Okay, good. I'm reaching out to see if anyone knows of someone or has had this type of help in the past. I think I need help. Some specific. I think I need to find something specific for my goals, and there are so many people out there marketing themselves as branding coaches. These days are it's hard to tell who's legitimate with experience and who's not. Any suggestions? So one of the things I talk about next few minutes, so we're not going to take a lot of time because I know a lot of you are on the East Coast, and so now we're looking at, this is 8:30 in the evening for some of you, and I know that's getting late for you because I like to go to bed early myself. So question for her is, as far as branding, first question I'm going to ask you, Leanne, is why are you thinking about branding?
I'm just using it as a term for a business direction with focus. I feel like right now I can't work any faster. I have people coming in my studio, every day. Some people 2 days a week. I have like 20 employees. I'm like, I physically can't move any faster than I'm moving, and I'm turning people away every day, and it makes me feel like I'm losing money every time I turn a sale away. And I need somebody with more, I'm pretty good at business. I would like to say that I'm pretty good at business, but I think that I need someone that's even better at it to be like, okay, let's kind of show me how to focus and on what is important. Because necessarily what I feel is important, based on especially these things that you've talked about, what makes you frustrated, scared, and excited, isn't necessarily financially for my business what's important. And so anyways, I need someone to be able to look at what's going on specifically in my business and be like, okay, well, financially, it makes more sense for you to do this, and you want to do this. So let's come up with a way for you to do this. And, do you know what I mean? Like, I think I just, I have it's really good. And I don't want to like lose the momentum that I have. Like, and I think that turning people away from buying stuff is not really a good way to do business. And it's been going on for enough time now where I'm confident that's not going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having trouble keeping up, and I don't know how to fix that. So I'm trying to just find someone that's better at it than me, I guess, to ask questions to, maybe like I don't know. So I looked online, but then I see these people and they're like, oh, we're like a branding business person. And I look at their like quote references, and it's like, they've never owned a business in their life. And, they're like, oh, well, I had this battle with this near-death experience, and I decided I wanted to own my own business. So I started this branding business. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry that you almost died, but that doesn't qualify you to, you know what I mean? Like, teach me how to run my business. So I thought I would reach out to you guys, and maybe you guys would have had some experience with somebody, or I don't know, just something like that.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
So I recently took a graphic design course, and we learned about what does it mean to brand for someone. And so branding, I don't know what you're looking for and describing doesn't sound like branding to me. It sounds like you want a professional's opinion of what they're doing, and not like branding is when you're getting a logo, you're having a clear like vision of what your company looks like. And I think that would help with maybe recognition and people coming to you. And even if you can't keep up with the orders, they might like wait until you can provide that.
Yeah, and as far as branding goes, what you're describing, I agree with you, and like I'm aware, like that's the term, and I'm using it loosely when I'm like, oh, I'm looking for somebody for branding. Like as far as like a logo goes, and like what people think of immediately when they hear Elan Pottery, like that kind of stuff, like I'm okay with. It's more like as an overall picture, like on my 10-year goal sheet, be Martha Stewart is on there. Like I got to get to be Martha Stewart within 10 years. Like, I mean, that's a lot of pressure on a person. So
yes, that's a lot of pressure.
I mean,
awesome.
And it's not even on the 20-year goal sheet. It's on the 10-year goal sheet. So I'm just like, I need like, there's like a lot of momentum, and I'm really driven, and I just think that I need somebody that is, anyways, enough about me. I just think that it would be beneficial for me to talk to somebody that, I don't know, has some kind of a business sense more than I do.
Do you
follow? Go ahead. You're still muted, Carly. Go ahead, Becca.
Do you follow Farmhouse Pottery on Instagram?
No, but I think I've seen.
I just look into maybe contacting whoever runs that, because they have like a whole bunch of people that work for them, and it's more commercial almost, because it's like they're producing, everyone's producing the same thing. So it's, but I don't know, they seem to have a real flow. They have an idea. They have lots of followers. So I don't know, maybe contacting people who you feel like are doing what, where you want to go, so that, because some, lots of people are willing to answer questions.
Right. Yeah, that's a good idea. I wrote that down on here to check her stuff out, and or other people.
May I say it's really insightful for you to think about one thing, what you're asking, Leanne, is different than branding. So, and I think that's insightful of you. So thanks, Becca, for clarifying that. Carly, you've got.
Oh, it's fine. I'm half asleep. There's a place that's called Score.
Like SCORE?
Yeah, like I scored a point. I have two friends who've used them. One of them is she's a woodworker who has written books, and like Nick Offerman but so she's up in the working. But it's called SCORE, and apparently it's like retired successful business people to you about your business. It's not about like your art or it's like legit business stuff.
That sounds like exactly what I'm thinking would be perfect.
Yeah. And there's there's a place in our town. I've never met with them, but I have 2 friends and 2 people I don't know well, but I've met them that have used it. And I think it's free-ish.
I think it was about.
I don't know. But
interesting. All right, cool. Thank you. I will definitely be checking that out as well.
That's good. Thanks, Carly. That's good info. That's a good insight. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I can also talk later if you'd like to brainstorm together on a private would be fine too. But good feedback. Anybody else have feedback would be helpful for?
I was just wondering if there's any like patterns in the if there's any patterns in the stuff that you're churning away.
Helpful for y'all.
Can you hear me or no?
I can hear you, but there's somebody else talking over you. It's so weird.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's like any patterns in the kind of work that you're turning away.
It's not like that I'm turning work away. It's that like I'm making stuff and I list it and it's like I can't make enough. Like I listed on Etsy and I have like 600 pieces sell out in like 3 minutes, and then people writing me nasty emails about how I've lost their business because they can't get a piece of pottery. And I'm like, I'm only one person, and I also have like 8 Renaissance Festival shops across the country, and I'm stocking stuff online. Like, so it's not like I'm turning specific things away, like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's like I can't make enough for the amount of demand that I have. And so
I wonder if your prices need to be adjusted or something too.
Well, that's the other thing. It's okay, so I could bring my prices up, but like then I become like this other situation where it's like exclusivity, and that's not what I want. Like I see other people on Instagram that, in my opinion, shouldn't necessarily maybe be charging what they're charging, and they're doing it just because they have, 50,000 followers on Instagram and they can get it. But to me, I don't want to be like, oh, you can't afford $100 for a mug, well then you don't deserve to have my mug. It's like, no, the mug is worth $40 and you should pay $40 for it. So I don't want to be, I guess, like, okay, so like a compromising who I want to be. And do I have mugs that are $100? Sure, but I also have mugs that are 30 and 40. Whereas like possibly comparable people on Instagram that have a similar following to mine are selling that same mug for 70. And could I raise it to 70? Yeah, I could raise it to 70 and still sell them. But it's like, that's not what I don't want to do that, like.
So
I don't know. It's really, I've been battling the price thing for a while.
Are you struggling with how others perceive your work or the value of your work? Because like,
no. I just
what?
don't think it's fair for someone that can't afford a $70 mug to not be able to have it when the only reason it's $70 is because it sells out. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't understand. I don't see, like, that doesn't seem fair to me. Like,
what about, I don't know what platform you're selling on, but on my website, I know that I can create kind of like ghost pages that you can only navigate to with a specific link. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know why I would use that. Like, I physically.
Well, what I'm saying is if you had that, and if you had like some people emailing you and saying, screw you, I can't get your mugs or whatever, if they're nice people, and you say, well, listen, I can put you on this super secret list where you get to navigate to my shop 5 hours prior to the rest of the people.
That seems so not right. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it.
But
like I'm like all about fairness. Like I don't want you to not be able to have a piece of pottery because you can't afford it, or like
can I ask you a question?
Like, and then I have people like
Leanne?
boyfriends or old people that can't, like, not that old people can't navigate Etsy, but like older women are always emailing me like, I can't navigate Etsy. Or I have boyfriends going, I don't know how to navigate Etsy, and my girlfriend wants this mug. And I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Okay, Leanne, I've got to ask you a question. Let me just put a little reality into what you're saying. As soon as you put any price tag on anything, you have started to limit who can access your work. You're saying, this is just a good reality check for all of us to have.
Yeah.
As soon as you put any price tag, it automatically delineates a segment of the population of the planet.
Yes.
And say, you can no longer have this because I'm not going to give it to you for free.
Yo, I definitely hear what you're saying. But
okay.
Charging somebody 30.
So wait.
100.
You're not going to get to the next point.
All right, I'm listening.
Every time you raise it up $5, you're going to delineate another group of people. So if your price point right now is how much? Price. How much is your price point?
37 to 200, or 30 to 200, depending on what's going on.
Let's talk about one mug. How much is for a mug, generally speaking?
Okay. Those are all for mugs. I would say an average mug price is $65.
Okay, $65. Okay. Why not charge 25?
20 what?
65. 25.
Yeah, that's
25. Will make a whole lot more of the world's population. It'll make them way more available to them than 65.
I know, but I have $25 mugs too.
Okay, well then why okay, well if you have $25 mugs, why not charge $5 for them?
I see your point.
I hope you do, because you need to be really conscientious about that, is that you're always going to exclude some. At some point, you have to say, when am I excluding my dreams and my goals?
It just feels shitty to sell something to somebody that, like, the only reason I'm able to sell it to them for that is because I've done a really good job marketing myself. Like,
but that's the point of marketing.
I know, but it feels shitty.
And the point of branding is at some point you have to say, I'm not ashamed of charging this, because you're not ashamed of charging 65, of charging 75. Because every time you put a different price tag on something, you exclude another group of people.
And can I say one thing? At the same time, it's your business. I mean, if you don't want to charge $80 and go that next step up, you don't have to. That's the beauty of having your own. Yes. Like if it makes you feel crappy and honestly your heart like hates that, don't do it. You know what I'm saying? $65 is not a bad price. If you're making $65 off a mug, keep on rocking the $65 mug or $25. But the one thing I think.
And then the other. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to stop on one thing I think, because I don't really know you too well. But, you know, as you said, you had 17 other employees or however, maybe there's another way to utilize them differently.
They are selling for me at shows. So I'm not physically with them. Like I have shows across the country that now I've hired people to run. So like I'm sending them stuff. So like.
But maybe you could hire people to make instead of sell.
Well, I've tried to find people to make, and that's a whole nother problem. I have an ad in Ceramics Monthly, I have an ad on Craigslist, I have an ad at my local pottery studio. I mean, I have an ad.
Sounds like you have great problems.
I know.
They're fantastic problems. You know? Like, what wonderful, wonderful problems. Do you know Element Clay Studio, Heather Knight? Okay, she makes beautiful, of course, I like all whiteware, sculptural wall. Anyway, if you look her up on Instagram, it's Element Clay Studio. And she cannot keep stuff on the shelf. And she was one of the first people I started following. And she wasn't like complaining, but she's like, man, I can't keep stuff on the shelf. I'm like, what a wonderful problem. Yeah, you know, you have great problems. They might not feel good, but.
No, it feels great. I love my life. It's amazing to be wanted. It's just also, you know, it's also.
And there is a solution. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a solution.
That's what my part of this next phase of it is figuring out the solution and making it work. Because right now, like fielding people's like comments on Instagram about your Etsy update sold out in less than 5 minutes. You've lost my business. And I'm like, I had 500 mugs on there. Like, do you know how much work that was? And then you're going to be like, blame me? Like, that's a lot of work. Like, it just.
Yeah, you can't worry about.
Yeah.
I think
yeah, some of that stuff you can't.
But yeah,
there's going to be sometimes people that are, you can't. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so anyways, that's part of me trying to find like a business mentor, is someone that can talk me through those things and be like, you're insane, just charged $100 for the mug. But like, it just seems not right. Like, thinking about it longevity wise, I see some people that are on Instagram, like I said, and they're selling their minimum mug as $100, and it's just a mug with glaze. And the only reason that they're selling it, I mean, yes, it's a pretty mug, but it's not prettier than anybody else's necessarily. It's just because they've marketed themselves well on Instagram. Okay, so like, but what's the longevity of that? Like, okay, what about in 5 years? Are like, is your nose ring and your dreadlocks and your hippie atmosphere still selling your pottery for you? Maybe you've changed, your brand's changed, so therefore people aren't interested in your stuff anymore. So I'm not like trying to go for that. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm like the new hip thing, so buy a mug. Like, I've been making like my business and supporting my family for 12 years now doing this, and I don't really intend to stop like in a year when Instagram goes to shit or what, you know, whatever. So I don't want to like set the precedent of, oh, my mugs are $100 right now because I can. Because in 20 years, when I can't, I don't want to backtrack.
Look, that's a really good point. That's a super good point, Leanne, is thinking about 5 years down the road and 2 years down the road. And you're absolutely right, is that this platform that we're really stoked about as artists right now, Instagram, going the way of Facebook. Facebook is super painful to try to promote your work on now, which is why I'm not a big promoter of Facebook right now. But it's why it's really important to be playing with other things, like making sure you're involved in Pinterest. At least, I would say, at least as a visual artist, if you're trying to sell something that's visual, on at least 3 different platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. Right now, like my 3 that I think are really powerful. Well, Facebook is powerful if you want to pay to play. The other ones that are not that are not pay to play, which is Instagram and Pinterest, you can really do a lot of great good for yourself through those 2 right now.
Right.
So be playing at least a couple of them, just so you can have a foot in the door in a couple of places.
The other thing about upping your prices is that if you're looking at the long term, at some point your body's not going to be able to make 500 mugs.
Yeah, no, I think about that every day. Like,
you're going to have to
thing that Paul said, scared. That's number 1 on my scared list, is like my body giving out.
Right, which that's what we're dealing with over here, and you know, it's you're going to have to up the prices at some point. I don't know. I just think that there has to be a balance there.
Right. Yeah, finding it is really a battle, though.
And the thing that we've all talked about in this context on these is about having 2 different lanes. Having your expensive stuff, and I think it's you hinted about that in one of your answers. You said, I do have $25 mugs and I have $65 mugs. So it's really good to have multiple lines.
You know.
You got 3 lines, boom, 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 yeah. So that might be that's one other thing to really think through, is about having those lines that do reflect that. So that's good. And the girl that
comes and she throws for me, she's getting her master's degree in ceramics, so she can't come every day, but she comes a day a week, and she makes mugs for me. And then those are my $25 and $30 mugs. So like, I pull the handles for them, but I don't decorate them. I don't, do any of the things like the fancy stuff on those. So I can charge less for them because like I'm not putting like my artistic creativity in them, but it's just not enough.
Nice.
I know, and I hate talking about it because it's like, it's really frustrating. You have to really pick who you talk to things about like this, because like people say like that, oh, it must be rough. It's like, I mean, I'm not complaining. It's amazing. It's just, it doesn't mean that I don't have my own set of issues I need to deal with, you know?
Yeah, it's a real problem. It's a real problem that we have to find a solution for with you. So I do not in any way belittle the fact that you are trying to figure out how to get to the next level. It's a great, and we want to be a part of that solution, not just saying, God, what a great problem to have, and then pretend like it's not that big of a deal. No, it's a big deal because it's all relative. It's everything is always relative.
Yeah.
Situation. So Peter Pincus would be in a different place. You know, he'll charge $400 for a mug, and he gets it all day long.
Yeah, I've listened to that podcast that you had with the guy that makes the faces, you know, like on Halloween. And
$350 a mug.
And I'm all like, I said to my husband, I was like, that's what I need to be doing. And he was like, don't get insane down there. Because I'm just not that person. Like, I just am not. It's not, I don't want to say, it's like, none of us are potters for the money, you know? So, I mean, is it a blessing that I'm able to make a living? Yes. But I'm not trying to like, oh, well, I can, you know, I'm not trying to do that, you know? So
can I say this? We're not potters for the money, but we're in a business for the money.
Oh yeah,
and it's
definitely.
That's a different distinction. When we're running a business, it has to make a profit. Otherwise, it's a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad that you said that you said, I'm not a potter for the money. Right, I get that. But you are a business for the money. And the business part of it is the issue that you're talking about here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's got to be somewhere, I got to find it in the middle, because I didn't start doing pottery, like we said, for the money. But now that I own a business, like, and I got to think about it with a business hat. But at the same time, like, this, you know, I'm not like corporate America, and I don't intend to be. So I got to find a balance in between, like, what makes me happy for my soul and for what I want to do, but also so that it's profitable, obviously, you know?
Yeah. Well, listen, the vast majority of and the vast majority of it, Leanne, of America is really the small business owner like you. Like there's more people are employed and find a living based upon what people like you and me and the other people in this group do is by having a small business. It's way more significant than all the other businesses combined. So it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal what you do. We'll keep working with you to be able to find solutions for that. Look, I feel really bad that
all the help you guys have given me. It was so really nice. Just to be able to talk about it, honestly, is hugely helpful.
Yes. I feel bad that we've gone to 6 o'clock tonight. I've seen that people are starting to slowly drop off, and I feel bad about making people feel like they've got to sneak off. So I feel sorry about that, y'all. So we should probably call it a night. So I hope that everything we talked about tonight is really helpful. The next, I'm not sure if we're going to want to meet next week. Next week is Thanksgiving week. So I'll put that out on the Facebook page. See if you guys want to meet next week. If you do, then I'm all up for it. If not, then we may want to just skip a week and then come back. But I'll tell you what I would like to talk about next time we get together. I would like to talk about goal setting then. Because once you go through this process of why, it'll help us to be way more intentional and successful in going to the next step, is actually setting the goals. Does that make sense?
Can I say one thing, Paul?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you can stop it. I don't have anything like good to say, but I really did not mean. I see how it could come. I really did not mean to belittle your problem either.
No, I don't think you did.
No, I know, but no. But man, what a cool thing for 2018. What it looks like is that it's growing.
Yeah.
And that's what we all want our businesses to do, is grow. And eventually, even if our wonderful problems are smaller or bigger or whatever, I think every time there's that thing of growth, you know, we kind of stop fitting into the mold that we've been in. You know, you think about your kids, you know, once their shoes start growing, they don't fit anymore. I mean, once their feet get bigger, they stop fitting. And it just sounds like you're not fitting because you're growing, which is, you know, that's what I meant. Like, that's the part that I meant is awesome. Like, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's like awesomely hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. An analogy that makes a lot of sense to me because, like you said, your clothes don't fit anymore. You have to get new clothes. Otherwise, you're gonna, I don't know. It's gonna suck.
Yeah. Especially when you're 50 and you're planning your clothes now, you better like have some flex in there. Have some flex, girl. Have some flex.
Well said.
Well said.
Thank you.
This has been a really fun conversation, you guys. You guys have been amazing. Really good feedback for Leanne, and then also just good information about, or really helpful in trying to define some of the things I was talking about. So really grateful for you all. Any other thoughts before we hit the stop button? Okay, I'm hitting the stop button. Lots of love to you guys. We'll see you guys on Facebook and around the world. Okay, bye-bye.
Nice to meet you guys.
Chiro, don't hang up. Oh, Chiro's gone. Okay, lots of love. Bye.